Welcome. In this video, we're going to talk about Shimsung Gumbop, again the Shimsung form, Section 1, Part 1. To emphasize the point of these videos specifically, they are to give you a little more of a detailed analysis of the form itself. So if you want like the philosophy of the form and all that stuff from some like more of the voice of the Federation, there is a lovely document. It's a pretty old documentary, but there is a lovely documentary on YouTube that actually describes again the philosophy of this form, again seeing into the heart of the opponent and all that fun stuff. However, this is mostly an analytical approach to the form. Again, this assumes you already learned the form, and we just kind of like go through some of the details and have some fun with that. So one thing to keep in mind is Shimsung is traditionally broken up into 4 parts of not equal length. So part 1 tends to be pretty long versus the middle part, so section 3 tends to be pretty short. So I'm going to try to break it down by section, again sections 1, 2, 3, and 4, but the number of parts per section are going to depend on how long that section is or how interesting something I really want to talk about in any of those sections are. So keep that in mind that each of the sections are more canonical, but each of the breakdowns of the part is just to make it easy for me to convey the information. Shimsung is one of my personal favorite forms, so when I was going up through the ranks, going for black belt, I was supposed to know all of 1 through Shimsung, so 1 through 13 for my first on test, which very understandably the Federation has split up because surprising no one really is knowing 13 forms and 2 of them being particularly long for someone going for first on tends to be a little bit of a hurdle to, climb over if you don't have a lot of experience with memorizing forms and going through forms and learning how to engage with forms. So a little bit of history there. Again, I do enjoy this form. There's some aspects to it that I believe historically started with Shimsung and then they started to spread it out to other sections, but we'll talk about that probably in this section because there is the continuous Kia. This is the first time I had ever seen it growing up with Gumdo, but that has since been added to other sections. Final note before we actually get started with the form is that there will be parts of the form that I will be very transparent with. Again, I like to be transparent with my views on certain things because it's easier to understand the source of information. So if you're seeing me as a source of information, I want to be very overt with what my biases are so you can rectify it or at least view it and know that it exists, right? And the reason I say that at the top is the very first section in terms of application is gonna be kind of stretched thin a little bit, but there's a non-application aspect to it that we can talk about, but let's actually get started. From our classic chariot attention stance, chunbi, ready stance, palto, sword ready stance, ready to go, right? So from here, the draw. So this is the first and only time we do a draw like this. So up top, it's gonna be 10 short movements, 5 with the sword, moving up, and then 5 going to the side. So to kind of give you a taste of what's going on, the right leg is the one that is going to be shimmying. So toe out, straight, toe out, straight. You're gonna do that 5 times until you're about kimase or about double shoulder width distance. As you do so again, 1, 2, 3, 4. As we're drawing up, it's gonna be drawing straight up. So it's gonna be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You can do this with your hand. Like noticing it's like hovering. If you want to brace it on the back, you can. So technically with a 5, I am this way, and then another 5, So 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So you're drawing all the way out into this kind of a neutral position, just staring at someone in front of you. So why? So as you can imagine, first of all, if there was someone like right here and my intention was to do combat with them, they're just right there in my range, I'm just doing this, getting ready to go, they will stab me because I have zero defense in this position, right? So the purpose of Shimsung, at least the very, very beginning part, again, this was the way that it was initially taught to me, is you, as well as probably some other people like along your flank, you see a horde of enemies, right? So theoretically, you have the distance. This is you psyching yourself up, or again, creating that centered space mentally before you would actually quite literally charge into the fray. So the purpose of this is to calm the mind and not. So for example, if we're about to spar, I don't recommend doing this right before the match so that you can get going, right? Because that's a little bit silly. But the idea behind that, again, is that centering. So as you go through this section, again, yes, there's that timing, but again, think about that breathing this way, right? So again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I probably didn't count that properly, but that's okay. So from our very neutral stance, notice the knees aren't bent. This is just a neutral stance with my sword out the side, my offhand also to the side. My left leg, so notice, so not what not to do. It is not a C step. So it is not gather and then forward. So it's not in and front. From here, we're going straight ahead. So we're going to assume our Chiansei distance. So it's in, forward, so nice and slow, forward, and then we're going to do our next combination. So this has been something that has been hammered home over the past couple of years, is we very, very rarely do this C step where our foot, as we're moving forward, collects underneath us to come back out this way. It is a very linear step this way as we move forward. So that leads us to also a kind of questionable section of the form. So we are gonna do a constant key up as we charge straight ahead, doing a fairly simple combination. It's also a combination that we're gonna be seeing a lot in the future as well. So if we're here still in our neutral stance, so to do it without the key up, because also echoes in here a little bit, so hopefully the mic isn't doing that, but it is going to be, I'm going to break it down as an 11 diagonal. I'm going to change it up in a little bit, but think 11 diagonal, 11 diagonal, upper block, upper cut, and we might as well continue from here. You're going to draw back with a Pao Sensei into a thrust Teidosei. I'm going to step back so you have a little more space for this one as well. So as we're here, again, we just did our 2 steps forward, 1, 2. It's going to be 11 diagonal, upper block, upper cut in Sotosei, drive back, Bomsei as you cover, Teidosei thrust horizontally, again, blade alignment to the side, allegedly to slip through the ribs. The reason I usually teach 11 then diagonal is to really teach the student to go up to the corner and then cover. So again, theoretically, in this form in particular, it kind of phases in and out of existence, right? Theoretically, the idea is we're using a Ssangsu gum. Again, for those of you who are tired of hearing that, this is the last form that I'm gonna say that, right? Because the next set of forms, the Yedo, allegedly use a short sword, which is this, right? But theoretically, we're using a much longer, much heavier weapon, right? And if we think about just doing diagonal cuts, we're going to kind of see something like this as you're trying to get a little bit lazy, versus if I teach 11 block first, it gets you used to getting your whole body up to cut, whole body up to cut. So in reality, it is not an 11 block diagonal. It is a rolling diagonal cut. However, I recommend because you should be an instructor if you're looking at this video, I recommend teaching it initially as an 11 to get them used to all the way around the head, bang, 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 as you get used to, again, nice big arcing cuts as opposed to one of these guys. So I mentioned a constant key up, right, which is fun. The idea behind this is, so from a mildly philosophical perspective, I am charging into the middle of the mix, shouting my lungs out in order to demoralize and disperse, which hit or miss, honestly, right? So like I've been to a number of sparring tournaments. Most people that I know don't key up when we spar because it's sometimes kind of pretentious to be like, oh, I landed a strike, ayah, give me a point, right? Versus, I have seen a number of times when someone does do a key up and the other person wasn't expecting it, it can rattle them at least for a little bit. So keep that in mind, like with a grain of salt, everything with a grain of salt, right? But that is also not fighting a classically trained soldier. So I'm sure if you shout with the constant key up at a classically trained soldier, it's gonna do nothing. But we're gonna pretend, right? So from here, we're gonna do a constant key up. So ideally, so I'm just gonna kind of do my heart's not gonna be fully in it, but I wanna give you that timing of that one. So it's so you use up most of your air, and at the very last moment, as you're about to land that thrust, throw in that last bit of air into a louder key up. From the clip in the beginning, you know this is where we're gonna be pausing. So I want to break down that specific combination a little bit because there are ideas hidden inside of it that you can use and you can extrapolate from into your actual swordplay, right? So the idea of starting off with a double strike, right? One way that you can have slightly more success, right? Again, this is not guaranteeing or anything like that, but you have more success is if you do establish a pattern, flow with the pattern, break the pattern, right? So imagine which one would be more likely to land. So if I'm here, I'm just like, and I just keep running at you. Eventually the guy's just gonna be here, just like, all right, stop. You had your fun. Versus if I establish a pattern, break the pattern, right? And again, nice flow as you counter and all that stuff. So establishing a pattern in order to break it is not a bad idea. Now notice it was only 2 strikes. So don't, so as you're striking someone, if you do this for a solid 3 minutes and then right? Not the same thing versus establishing a brief pattern, 1, 2, in order to break it immediately after. That is more likely to succeed than, a million of these and then a tiny little stab. So keep that part in mind as well. A few more notes to kind of close off with. So as with all forms, there should be a purpose. Again, it could be application purpose, it could be a breathing purpose, it could be a conditioning purpose, which is not the most fun for form, right? Because if you want conditioning, there are easier ways of doing it without swinging a sword. But as we're doing any part of the form, for example, that very beginning part, so especially when we're testing, we want to kind of speed things up because, the sooner you finish the form, the sooner your test is done, right? That's a way of thinking about it. But if you're like, do this way, right? Completely missing the point. So I want you, as you're going through it, is again, think about where your center of mass is, right? And have that nice structure around it this way. The hand motion is not helping, but again, if that's our center of mass, kind of rolling the shoulders back and opening up the chest. So obviously a bad idea for if you're about to be stabbed by someone, it's like, haha, there you go. But we're out of range. Again, use that time to open up, feel that center line. Again, feel that diaphragm tighten as, again, nice and clean as we open up. This part, you should feel your core nice and tight as if someone's about to punch you as you finish up here. So again, a little bit on the silly side, maybe more than a little bit on the silly side, but think about all these tiny little details as you go through form, because if, this is one way of viewing it, if you have to do a form anyway, this is an excellent way to work on some of these smaller things. Like, okay, let me feel, you know, the tension, right? Feel the structure of my body. And this is a good time to do it before you do a very long form, because it's a doozy. So let's have some fun. But with that, right? So this is the first step into the longest form, I would say in Gumdo history, because, you know, at least all the Gumdo forms I know, I believe this is the longest one. So it's our first step into doing something rather remarkable and going through a particularly fun and different form. There's a lot of things in here that are unique to Shimsung, you don't see anywhere else. Some fancy footwork and all that fun stuff. So hope you enjoy. But with that, make sure you stay safe, stay humble, and keep training.